Well, hello. Well, we're back at my workbench. And, well, we've got this Kimber to deal with again. You know, it's completely disassembled, as you can see from my last video. You should know that. Well, let's start off with the easy parts. You know, let's do the magazine real quick. Magazine is fairly easy. All you need to do is take your follower, put that in, flat with the flat, round with the nut round. You know, almost any monkey knows what that is. Oh, I think most chimpanzees are actually smarter than us. Put your spring in, put the bigger part of the spring in first. That's what's gonna go up onto the follower. You're going to start feeling resistance about 3/4 of the spring in. And all you really got to do is just work the magazine. That's it. Work the spring in. Fairly easy. Take your first part of the base plate. Slip that on. That actually serves to lock in the second part. Magazine's ready to go. All you need to do is just add ammo. Okay. Well, let's get with this upper. Or should I say the fun part of it. Excuse me for a minute. Un momento. Sorry, I'm just getting home from work. I forgot to grab my juices. You know, the Juice of Champions. Nas. Okay, let's get back to work. After I open up my can. Okay. Now, for those of you who are just starting out, you know, if you watched my first video, you would know this. You know, I've already put in my mainspring housing, and it's fairly easy to do. You know, I use my gut. You know, it pays when you're a little fluffy. And it's just easy. Press down on the spring. You know, you want to make sure you put your round part on the bottom of the mainspring housing. Flat part up top. Keep your pin in your hand. And if you're like me and you can do it against your gut, it's fairly easy. Use your punch. Keep your pin in your hand. Slip your pin in. And it's all set. Next. As you remember from my last video, I took off the magazine release spring. Take your spring, take your little piece, press down, okay. Now remember not to have any of it sticking out because it won't go in. Time for your trigger. And at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply either a little bit of grease or oil, whichever one you prefer. You know, whichever floats your boat. I'm using grease. I've also been known to use oil. Now I go ahead and strip this down at least once a month, like I said. Now you don't have to, I choose to. Put your trigger in, remember it only goes in one way. You know, if you have a set screw on the bottom of the trigger, it's going to be fairly easy. Next, take your magazine release, slip that in. Now what you're going to have to do is when you go to put it back in, you're going to have to lift it up about 1/8 or so, just to find that sweet spot. Sweet spot, it's in. Now if you want to go ahead and check function, take your magazine, stick it in. After it's in, should be nice. Let's try a full one. Full one slips right out. Okay. Next. Next, what you're gonna have to do is, you know, right now it's, let's see. Go ahead and place in your sear. Remember, this is going to be on your flat part. Take a little bit of grease, put it on the back of your trigger. Either grease or oil, again, you know, whichever one you prefer. Take your trigger. Remember, the flat side is on the bottom, or is on the trigger. You know, that's the main piece. Next, your sear, your jagged edge. It's a piece that looks like a shovel that goes on top. Now the first time you do it, you know, you're going to have to play with it a little bit. I even still have to play with it. Next thing you're going to want to do is take the pin. Just, again I say, you're going to have to play with it just a little bit. Once it's in, it's in. Now you can take your trigger, pop that in.
I see now.
You know, just line up the hole. Oops.
Make secret these words and seal up.
Trigger's installed, or actually the hammer, I'm sorry. Now, take your mainspring, put that in, and the mainspring is fairly easy. Now at this point, I normally take the mainspring housing and slip it in, just a little bit, just enough so that this way you're keeping tension. Take your beaver tail, put that on. Okay. And sorry, don't mind me. Take your safety, or your safety lever spring, put that in as well. Take your safety, put that in. Now, mind the less, this is not an ambidextrous safety, so, you know. Now, also at this point, cock your hammer, because without it, you're not going to be able to put it in. Press down on your safety. Release your hammer. Come up with your pin, or your mainspring, take your pin, Now you might have to apply a little bit of pressure. Sometimes this can be a three-handed job. Push it in with your hammer. Now, at this point, I normally like to check function of the weapon, just to make sure everything is functioning the way it should. Cock your hammer, pull the trigger. Cock your hammer, check to see if the beaver tail is working, which it is. Check your safety. Everything functions just the way it should. Now, at this point, you know, because I do have Crimson Trace grips on it, I'm going to take and put my little plastic covers on, put my grips on. Now, before I start screwing in any of them too far, I normally give them about a turn and a half or so. Before I screw in any of them. Now that I've got all four in. Now, I mean, you could just do this, if you just have normal grips, you could just do it one at a time. But because I have the Crimson Trace, I try, this is just a step I take. You know, don't over tighten them. If you over tighten them, you're going to run into a lot of issues. Normally, my rule of thumb is once I start to feel a little bit of pressure, I give it about an eighth of a turn. I just do this just to make sure function of the weapon. Yep, function of the weapon is completely fine. I'm going to set that aside for right now. Now I'm going to concern myself with my slide. Okay. Now next thing. Take your extractor, put it in, remember it in. It goes in only one specific way. Okay. Next thing, hammer spring, or trigger spring. Now this is another piece that only goes in one way, at least in my case. Come. Hey, that was a good one. Now when you go to put it in, you're going to have to apply a little bit of pressure just to keep it down. Okay. Come back with your punch. Now this is like another one of those jobs where it could be a three-handed job, because a lot of times what ends up happening is I might even do this off camera, just so I can get it half seated. You know, this is like another one of those jobs that you might actually have to do three-handed. Because in my case, the ejector actually has to be out just a little bit for everything to line up correctly.
And he will wipe out every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more. No more
Okay.
pain, no outcry, nor pain be anymore.
Now all you have to do is just slide it in, see how it is. At this point, you could just slide it in, or you might even have to take a little bit of a non-marring hammer and use that. At this point, it is a good idea to lube your barrel. You know, 1911s prefer to be run wet, not dry. Which reminds me, got to put a little bit on the upper piece. You know, right at the barrel link. Yeah, like I said, at this point, just take either a little bit of oil or lube, or whatever you choose to use. Okay. Actually, you know what? No, I screwed up. I forgot to put in my bushing. You put it in them with the Kimbers. You have to have the bushing all the way over here before you can pull it out, put it in. And normally what my rule of thumb is, the sooner I put it in, I immediately turn it the other way. This way I know it is set. Okay. Now, I mean, you don't have to, but it's just something I do. Now in this instance, cock your hammer. Don't even put your weapon on safety. Okay. Move the action all the way back. Push in your disassembly lever. Actually forgot to put on safety. Normally once that pin is in, put it on safety so that this way the slide doesn't move. Should be all good to go now. Let's just test. Cock your hammer. Safety works. Beaver tail works. And you know what? Your weapon is completely assembled. Yeah. I want to thank you guys for watching it. Please rate, sub, and subscribe, or subscribe and comment. And by all means, whenever you have fun, do so in a safe manner. Well, until the next time, this is Chris090883 signing out. Remember, don't do anything I wouldn't do.